Welcome to HortTube, where we talk all things gardening. My name is Jim Putnam, and this is a Rose Creek Abelia. This is Rose Creek Abelia, a very low maintenance, low growing, evergreen shrub noted for its almost all summer flowering. Rose Creek can reach 3 to 4 feet in height and 3 to 4 feet in width, but could easily be kept in the 2 to 3 foot range. This plant is just an absolutely perfect low growing evergreen shrub that'll work on a foundation or work any space that you want to just keep something with leaves on it through the winter in the less than 3 foot range. Not a lot of shrubs that we can use that we can keep that size. Most shrubs want to blow through 3 feet. So there's really not going to end up being a lot of maintenance on this plant because of that. Most Abelia, including Rose Creek, will grow in zone 6 to 9. In zone 6, I probably wouldn't plant this plant out in open space, like in the middle of a parking lot or anything like that, because anything down around 0 or below 0 probably would do significant damage to this plant. But as a foundation plant in zone 6, no problem in zone 7, 8, and 9 anywhere. Rose Creek Abelia is a slow growing shrub. It puts on quite a burst of growth in the early spring. It's actually quite beautiful. It has a pink or reddish tinge to the new leaves. It's quite beautiful. But once it starts flowering, these flowers are on the outer part of the plant, and that pretty much stops most of the upward growth the rest of the summer. In terms of sun or shade conditions for Rose Creek or pretty much any Abelia, we're definitely talking more sun the better. This plant would not do well in the shade at all and really needs at least 3/4 of that midday sun. That's why you'll see this plant in parking lots. You'll see it in medians, down the middle of the road. It's extremely pollution tolerant and sun tolerant, heat tolerant, but not shade tolerant. In terms of usage of Rose Creek Abelia, we're definitely talking about a great foundation plant because we're going to be able to keep it below 3 feet. One issue you have is I probably wouldn't put it right next to your front door. It does have bees during the summer on these beautiful flowers. And so that can be an issue if it's right beside your door, but anywhere, more than 4 or 5 feet left or right of your front door, it's just not an issue. And come on folks, they're honeybees on flowers. They don't even know you exist. They're not going to cause you any problems. And you're helping them out by planting this plant. Another great use for Rose Creek Abelia will be planted in mass, and you'll frequently see these in commercial parking lots in zones 7, 8, and 9, planted in long rows or in mass. These flowers are just beautiful all summer long, and the landscapers can come along and prune them pretty frequently, and they just pop right back out and start blooming again. So it's just a perfect plant for them to use. I do see them frequently over mulching these and causing significant problems for them. This is a plant that you're definitely going to want to think about not over mulching. You want it in a bed, you want it mulched. I don't want it in your grass, but make sure you're putting just a thin layer of mulch on these. I believe that if it's a thick layer of mulch, it holds too much water between rains, and this is not a plant that likes to sit in water at all. Rose Creek Abelia will begin blooming in late May and bloom pretty much throughout the summer. If you had to prune it sometime during the summer, that'll stop it because the flowers are right out on the edge, but within 2 or 3 weeks, they'll come right back out and start up again. Where the flowers were on this plant in the clusters, those little clusters turn pink. And so you have this contrast between the white flowers and the pink and then the green foliage, which is quite nice on this plant. It's very, very showy, and it's showy well into the fall, even after it stops flowering. In terms of planting Rose Creek Abelia, this is a really, really super low maintenance plant. Not a lot's going to be required for any part of the maintenance or planting of this plant. But when I plant things in the clay soils, I always mix in some pine bark soil conditioner. It's what we're growing these plants in. It allows the water to pass through a little more freely between rains. If you're planting in sandier soils, you want to put something in that sand that allows it to retain a little moisture between rains, which would be compost, cow manure, peat moss, any of those things, maybe 50-50 with whatever you pull out of the hole. We're definitely going to want to elevate Rose Creek Abelia when we plant it. You're going to want to dig the holes if you're going to plant the entire root ball into the ground and then do your soil mixture with the pine bark soil conditioner or the compost or whatever you're mixing with your soil, and put some of that material back in the bottom of the hole, maybe 2 inches, so that when you take the plant out of the pot, set it into the ground, it's sitting up about this much above the original grade, about 2 inches. Pull your soil up to the edge of that and then lightly mulch. I can't reiterate enough, this plant is not like 3 or 4 inches of mulch. I was in a town recently and saw they had managed to kill these for probably a half mile in a median by putting 8 inches of mulch down, and I'm sure what they thought they were doing was saving themselves from having to mulch so frequently by putting the 8 inches of mulch down, but it did kill these very quickly. This is an extremely drought tolerant plant, but it does flower during most of the summer months, and these summer flowering shrubs, if we let them get too dry, they will just kind of stop flowering. It won't hurt the plant, but they'll go into a kind of a dormancy, a summer dormancy, and they just will slow down on the flowering, maybe lose some interior foliage. So if it gets abnormally dry, you might want to drag a water hose over to this thing just to make sure it continues to flower and do what you put it in the ground for. I would definitely fertilize any Abelia in the springtime with a slow release fertilizer. You could use an Azalea Camellia rhododendron fertilizer or Holly Tone. It's an acid loving plant. Super easy, one application in the spring. Anything that lasts 3 or 4 months would be perfect. Abelia can be pruned pretty much whenever you'd want to. I don't prune leafy evergreens like this in mid to late fall just because they won't grow back. And I think some of that exterior foliage on these is protecting the inside of the plant. So any kind of early spring pruning would be perfect on this if it needed to be gotten under control. This thing grows as a perfect little dome and really doesn't end up, it rarely will need to be pruned if you put it in a place where it can be allowed to get 3.5 feet tall. If you're trying to keep it less than that, you'll probably have to do a couple summer prunings on it, which will take the flowers off. But like I say, they'll come right back out within 2 or 3 weeks and be flowering again. In terms of insect or disease problems on these, they're really sort of insect free. I rarely see anything chewing on these. They're basically deer proof. Deer rarely mess with Abelia. What would be an issue is if you had this plant planted in wetter soil, and I think you'd almost certainly end up with root rot issues. So what are you waiting for? Even you can grow the low maintenance, evergreen, almost all summer flowering Rose Creek Abelia. Thank you for watching, and if this video was helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for future videos. Also, comment below with any questions you might have about any of these all summer flowering Abelia varieties.